Yo dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up with another painting tutorial on this glorious Friday, the literal best of all days. Today, we're doing something different. How to paint a Horde army. This is something that has been a problem for a lot of people for a long time, because a lot of good lists have a lot of models in them, and that is an intimidating prospect to encounter in your hobby career. So I'm going to show you some simple techniques, 5 of them to be precise, 5 simple tricks to painting a Horde army. These tricks can be applied to an orc army, zombies, ghouls, with a little bit of color changes. You can actually do it with Imperial Guard, anything that has a Horde, base to it. You just have to think outside the box. I'm showing you Nurgle-based colors here, but you could literally do this with anything. If there's Imperial Guard, just change the colors, follow the same steps, think outside the box, and obviously feel free to message me anytime for any advice on these projects. After this video, we're going to be moving on to a Tyranid project. It's going to be the rest of the month, maybe a little bit longer. So the next few videos are going to be Tyranid based, and I apologize for that. As usual, check out my Patreon page, because this is actually how I get to a place where I don't just fill my commissions. If you guys don't like Tyranids, I apologize. But it's the only way I can do these tutorials. I have to film the commissions I do to pay myself a living wage. If I get enough money coming through Patreon or thelonghorde.net, hashtag bring a hobby back, then I'll be able to just do the models that are new and exciting, like this new Tau stuff coming out. I'll be able to just take requests. So please check out my Patreon page. Thank you to all my new Patreons. It's been a journey. You guys have been helping me out big time, but also check out thelonghorde.net. That is your exclusive access to all the early content and videos from the Long Horde. That includes a battle report, these painting tutorials a whole week early, live webcasts to stay current on everything that's happening in the gaming industry right now. Also, our podcast is out there. So these are all the things we're doing, and pretty soon we're going to have a new piece of content. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a collection of videos based on Codex must takes. So we're going to be tactic based. Also, we have a new sponsor coming in, King's Game and Hobbies. They're going to be adding 5% discount via promotion code over at thelonghorde.net. We already have dicehead.com over there offering 6% and Secret Weapon Miniatures offering 10%. So just by going over to thelonghorde.net and sign up for your free trial, you gain access to these promotional codes that give you discounts on all your gaming needs. So anyway, without further ado, let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. 5 simple tricks to painting a Horde army. We're going to be painting some of these fantasy ghouls, I guess Age of Sigmar ghouls now. And we're going to keep in theme with the Nurgle colors, because this is still part of a commission. So step 1, as usual, you guys may have guessed it, buy your ass an airbrush. That is always going to be my first tip. But also I'll show you this airbrush flow improver. This really works well, especially with the P3 paints. That helps you really get them airbrush ready, because I love Trader Green for anything Nurgle, especially if you have to blast through like 70, 80 zombies real quick. So we're going to prime these things black, and that is the first step in helping you cover any mistakes. Anything that doesn't get any paint on it will be black. That's better than white. We're going to completely cover these things in Trader Green. If they sold a Trader Green Army Painter style spray paint, I might just buy that. As soon as we're done with that and that's dried, let's spray it with this clear coat and then get our washes ready. And I only trust Testors clear coats, but you might have other experiences. And here is simple tip number 2. We're going to dip these things. You've never seen me do this before. So we're using Army Painter Sepia. These guys probably have one of the best washes for this type of thing. Like, they are the only thing that makes me sometimes retract statements about GW washes. This sepia is amazing. I can't say enough good things about it. Look how good it is. It just dried off. I mean, you could have done like OG dipping here. You could have just painted every little detail on this guy and then dipped it all at once and called it a day, and it would have looked better than most models. But I don't roll that way. I like to do a little bit more. So we're going to take the Trader Green and our airbrush, and we're going to just do a quick top-down highlight, really subtle, on the head, the backs of the arms, his legs. We're going to kind of just bring that smoothness back out to the surface. Just using exactly the same Trader Green. We're not going crazy. We're not highlighting this thing up 10 more times. This is a tabletop standard tutorial. This is how to get 70 zombies that look exactly the same, how to get them out this week for a tournament on Saturday, you know, and still be proud of them to show them on the table. As you see, and we're applying that Trader Green, he's getting a little smoother. It's kind of taking out some of the weird dusting that heavy washes do, but the Army Painter stuff doesn't do a lot of the nasty drying stuff. So now we're going to be a gangster. We're just going to dump out the Trader Green out of our brush. We're going to clean our brush. Then we're going to pull up some Men Off White base, which is like a bleach bone. We're just going to start mixing this in a little bit with the Trader Green because we're getting ready to do one of our top tricks of all time. This is tip 3, dry brush. You guessed it. The dry brush technique is one of the staples of any gamer's arsenal. We're getting the color the way we want it to be a highlight. And normally I would be subtle. I would like dry brush, Trader Green, add a little bit of Men Off White back into it, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. I would do like 3 or 4 dry brushes, right? No, this is how to get a horde on the table. So we're doing one dry brush, and it's going to be a little bit brighter than I normally like to do on my first airbrush. My first dry brush. It's going to be a little extreme. It's going to be a little bumpy. Like, this is not recommended for anything beyond this type of horde army. So you can already see it's a really rough dry brush. Like, it's not subtle at all. And the name of the game traditionally is you want to just build up multiple dry brushes and be as subtle as possible. But I'm going to cut out 3 dry brush stages with another trick later in the tutorial. So just go through, dry brush the whole thing. Like I said, you could be super gangster and you could have just painted every little detail, dipped it, dry brushed it, and called it good. Like if you, this is next level painting, so I like to do just a little bit more. I like to have a little bit more control over my model than like, a 2003 dip, you know. So here he is all totally dry brushed. Now we like the way he looks now. Now we're going to go in and we're going to start banging out the details real quick. And this is where I talk about I like to have control over these details versus do all the details then dip them. I don't like that. So we're going to go through, paint the skeleton on his back. We're going to paint the skeleton on his hand. We'll use a Men Off White again. We're keeping this color palette really limited because it's, like we said, it's a horde army. We've got 70 zombies to paint real quick. So we got to come up with a technique that looks good on the tabletop that you wouldn't be ashamed of, but also doesn't take up all the time in the world. Switching between a bigger brush to a smaller brush, the bigger brush to lay down a lot of the paint, go back to a lighter brush and brush that paint into the details, back into the pocket. There he is, coming out easy, keeping it simple. I mean, this guy's an interesting model, these ghouls. I think these are fun, counts as zombie. I'm using these in a Chaos Space Marine army as plague zombies for typhus. These guys are fun, way more fun to paint than the traditional cultists. Those guys are kind of a pain in the ass. So we're coming in a simple trick number 4. Keep it simple. We're not overthinking. We're not overcomplicating it. We are doing the same Men Off White on these skeletons that we did for the highlight for the dry brush. We're just painting some red into these guts because later you'll see why. The simplest things. We're not doing any real blending here. We're taking literally the first brown that I can see on my painting desk, and I'm taking that brown and I'm painting this rope around his waist. I'm not overthinking it. Like I said, it's a horde army. You're gonna have 70 more guys here. You can't hyper focus. These guys, you're gonna be removing 8, 9 of these guys at a time from an enemy volley. So you don't want to sit here and just make these show paste models, but you still want them to look good. Same thing. We're gonna take that same brown. I'm not even gonna wash it off my brush. I'm gonna blend it into this skeleton's head because he has a little bit of skin and hair still attached. Like, not gonna overthink it. Gonna quickly just throw it on there. Then I'm gonna take some of that Men Off White, quickly slather it on and try to blur the border between the two and be like, you know what, it'll ride. Because we have some more wash technique to deploy on this model. And I'm no stranger to painting 100 Space Marines in a week. And a lot of ways Space Marines are easier because of the hard lines, the fact that you can leave shoulders off and heads off and backpacks off. These organic models that are kind of all put together like this are so funny because these are like 3-point, 4-point models. They are hard to paint. Scouts are another one. 55-point unit for 5 guys is 10 times more time consuming to paint to a nice quality than 100 points in Space Marines. Like, it's crazy. So now we're moving back into the game color wash. And these, like I said, this is a great brand of wash. Like, this sepia is probably a little bit better than the GW brown washes. It has a little bit better drying application. It's still righteous. So now we're gonna apply it neatly to the skeletons. See, because I didn't want the skeletons to catch any of that overspray from my top coat of green. I didn't want him to get a green mixed in with a bone dry brush. Like a lot of the older dipping techniques would have had you paint all this at once, then dip it all at once. And then that's it. Well, I wanted to do some dry brush. I wanted to do some extra things, So that would have never worked for me. Now, here's the ancient Chinese technique. We're taking Secret Weapon Dark Sepia and we're watering it down to make a really light wash. Now, the Secret Weapon wash formula is a very subtle wash, like really, really subtle. I'm going to make it even more subtle by watering it down. And it gives you this interesting effect. It kind of blurs out the rigid edges of that harsh dry brush we did. Where we would have done like 3 or 4 dry brushes, we did one extreme dry brush and a really fast light wash. And it gives them a reptilian skin, like that really smooth skin, and it completely blurs the edges of those that harsh dry brush. Grab your spray lacquer again. Like I said, I recommend Testers. It's the best. And now coat it down, get it matted, because now we're going to do some Citadel Blood for Blood God. This dries on gloss, so you always want to do your matte coat first. And this is another easy trick, like if it was a 6-strip video, another easy way to get your hordes looking good is to use these technical effects. We did a really simple guts effect with the red in there, and now we're going to slather on some of this red. It looks good. We're going to put it on his mouth because he's a zombie, dog. He eats brains all day. Like, of course, he's going to have some blood on his mouth. He doesn't have a napkin. And also his hand, because, zombies, they use their hands to rip out your intestines to eat them. So obviously his hand needs some blood on it too. So we're going to slather on the blood. We're going to pull out a quick little sponge, just a little piece of pluck and pull foam. And we're going to just quickly blend that back into his wrist a little bit. Make it not look so ridiculous. And there he is. I'm going to tell you, this video is about 10 minutes of painting, maybe a little more. And I probably only spent about 10 additional minutes total in between the scenes you didn't see me. Like this model, not including dry times, because obviously dry times, but like if you're doing batches of 20, 30 at a time, this model literally took me 20 minutes, 25 minutes to paint, not including all the waiting and everything. But that's fine, because as you're like letting something dry, you're painting the next thing. So like that's a 15, 20 minute paint time on a model that, this is what I call that's a 3-color minimum in my opinion. That's a tabletop standard. That is the minimum you should be doing on any model. Anyway, thanks for checking out this video. Thanks for checking out my channel. Don't forget to check out my archives for all of my past work. Also, Robbie B, one of my best friends of all time, has an amazing channel called Spikey Bits. Check it out if you got an opportunity. And of course, check out thelongwar.net for exclusive content and early access videos. And of course, a podcast. Play on, players.